Okay, so after just filming the character introduction and realizing that it took that long to film it, I have up and decided to put that as a separate video so that the introduction part is one video and the character introduction part is another video, and then we'll go into the episodes. But I'll just film this quite quick introduction to stick at the beginning of the character introduction, because the character introduction I assumed was going to be part of the rest of it, so I didn't film an introduction to it. So here is the introduction to the characters of this show. This show being Detective. It's a Chinese show that was filmed in 2020. That's where you can find it, is on iQIYI. It's on there for free. Aside from that, if you don't care about watching it, but you're still curious about what I thought of it, continue watching. If you don't want to have spoilers before watching it, then go watch it first and then come back to this. Here we go. Character one is, here we go with pronunciation, He, I think it's He Chunting. Chunting. She is introduced in episode 6, and as far as I'm concerned, is literally 99.9% utterly useless. She never once plays a part in the main storyline. Okay, she sort of did once, but the story could have gone there without her just as quickly and easily. Her entire point and purpose in the show, as far as I'm concerned, is nothing more than to toy with all the boys. Like, come on. 90% of the character's purpose is the love square. 3 guys? Come on! And 9% of the rest of it is just to discuss Tan with Jiazhen. You can't change my mind on this, so don't even try. She is literally 95% useless and becomes increasingly irritating, to the point where even the first time through, I was skipping everything she was doing because I literally couldn't care less. All she does for me is represent a ton of things I hate about the common female characters in relation to common male characters, and I'll explain more as it comes up. Believe me, it comes up a lot in the last few episodes. The only thing I liked about her is her hair. I am so jealous of her hair because it is gorgeous and it is so long. Character 2, Zhang Jiu. He is a policeman in Fuyuan, and is therefore introduced when the main characters get there in episode 5. He is known mostly as Chunting's brother, but is actually not related to her. And while the first time through I was kind of meh about him as an individual, not really leaning one way or the other for most of it, while writing notes, I actually couldn't think of a single thing that I specifically liked about him. Well, I did have things I specifically didn't like. Namely, his weird vibes. And I know it isn't the bad acting, because I've seen this actor in something else and I loved that character. This one is just weird. He could just as easily not be in the show and no one would even notice, i.e. he's basically pointless. A side character that has a name but not much else. Then, when he does play a part in the story, it's in a side story that it distracts from the main one, a freaking love triangle that I absolutely hate. Then, kind of way too late, it is mentioned, surprise, surprise, he is an actual player in the actual story and it actually did have a point. Seriously? Wow. Character 3, Song Changmin. He is properly introduced near the end of episode 2, though the fact he's the 3rd son in the wealthy and extremely influential as well as messed up Song family from Fuyuan. Just as important, he is the rebel that assassinated the general in episode 1. What I did specifically like about him is that he's very calm and level-headed. He's good at waiting to gather facts before jumping into the middle of things too soon. And, well, for most of the show, you don't get to see it. Thanks a lot, frickin' stupid, useless, pointless, idiotic love square. He is actually quite skilled and quite intelligent. What I specifically didn't like about him is how routinely flat he is. He is so shut off from the emotional world that he's incredibly hard to read or understand, which makes him rather difficult to properly connect with. I also didn't like how he was a main character, but also wasn't. He's connected to the main story and helping to move things along more than once. Well, for most of the story, he's nothing but a distracting side story that slows everything down and gets so heavy and idiotic, I kind of wanted to start flipping tables. You'll see what I mean while we walk through the show itself. Character 4, Dapan. He is one of my top 3 favorite characters. And I mean 3 as in the 2 alters and Dapan are my favorite characters. So, Dapan is Tan's best friend and co-worker. Like, so he's a policeman, a detective. Literally the only one thing that I disliked about him was his instant obsession with Jinting. Even though he himself says he isn't good at solving cases, he's actually pretty smart and very quick-witted, especially when it comes to synchronizing perfectly with Tan and the altar. He's physically and mentally strong and unafraid to speak the truth, even if it's to a lady / he doesn't back down just because she pouts. He's loyal, and his love and care for Tan almost made me cry at one point near the end of the show. Literally, I almost wanted to cry. Like, you'll see when you get there. And when it comes to losing people and people's reaction to you, overall, his reaction to Tan and the whole DID topic is one of my favorite things about the show, and is also a big part of why I'm convinced it isn't a simple, typical JH story. Character 5, Luo Jiajian. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing any part of her name correctly. I was going to call her by her last name as well, but I think with all the times Tan says it in the show, I should know how to pronounce her name. I think it's Jiajian. I believe that's how he says it, Jiajian, even though that's not how it's spelled. She is the love interest of both alters in the main character system, and my opinion of her is, I said here, kind of complicated. It's actually really complicated. And this is why she's the second last character I'm talking about. Not because she's my second favorite, but because she's the second most complicated. Usually I end up hating the lead female characters in dramas. It's a long story why. Ask anyone that knows me, I typically get rather overheated on the topic. Even though I'm a girl. Okay, anyway. But even the second time through this drama, aside from 4 things that made me upset with her, or like downright furious at her, somehow those 4 things didn't end up making me completely write her off in an absolute hatred. I still don't know how. It's so weird to me how I can still like any part of her. I'll try to explain. Basically, I think what I liked about her saves her 3 times, and the one thing that makes me furious at her gets contained within a couple of episodes, which is confusing, and we'll get there. What I specifically did like / appreciate about her is that she doesn't claim things she can't back up. This is the key. I.e., she isn't at all the typical female character that goes, I can take care of myself, but is constantly proven incapable of doing that, and takes it the step further of actually being capable of protecting the people around her, versus the all too common female character type that ends up putting everyone around her in danger when she stubbornly does things her own way. She does make mistakes, many of them, but what she fights back against is usually motive, not fact, aside from the one time I was headballing over and you'll see it. And even more importantly, she does her best to correct her ways when she sees she's wrong or simply lacking in character, i.e., a key. She respects the person she claims she loves, and most of the time she listens to him. That is a huge key. I do believe that her love for Tan is real and is pure, and I am incredibly appreciative of that fact, even though it gets incredibly soured by one of the things, the one time that she is a massive hypocrite. Whew, we'll get there. Actually, there's 2 of the times that it kind of sours things, but on different levels and in different ways. Things that I was upset with her for. I'm trying not to complicate this, but it's complicated. Jiajian is smart, she is educated, and for the most part, she's not self-centered. Coughing over episode 18 to 19, though. Usually not self-centered, but for a little bit there. As I said, I'm convinced she really does love Tan, though. She loves him, and like it's key that love includes massive respect and that she actually listens to him. That is a key. That is a big key that is usually missing. People claim that they love someone, and yet they don't respect them and they don't listen to them. It's not real love if you're not respecting and listening to them. It goes both ways. The man is not truly loving the woman either if he's not listening and respecting to her. Respectful toward her. But anyway, sorry. I'm trying to give an overall view here, not get into the details. We'll try to get into the details later. I hope I cover all the details properly so it makes sense. The only thing that I disliked about her that I will mention here, specifics and details, because it comes up so soon. It's one of the 4 things that she did that made me irritated, annoyed, or downright furious at her. Is what she does shortly after being introduced. And no, I'm not talking about the boat scene, because that boat scene was actually pretty funny. I don't know if I can go into detail about it, but it was actually pretty funny. What I disliked about her, and I'll go into details here, so spoilers. What I disliked about her right off the bat was the whole engagement ordeal. The frustration is real, I get that. But the way Jajan pushes and pushes for Tan to marry her without talking to him first about why he's backing away is irritating to the nth degree, and the only 100% disrespectful thing she does to him, specifically to Tan. We'll get into the... But this is the only 100% disrespectful thing she does specifically to Tan. I mean, maybe she didn't expect him to be pushing so hard since she's been away for a while. Maybe it's a genuine surprise the way he's acting. But she does say later in the show that this love of hers has been one-sided for a long time. So why? Why did she go through her dad and his uncle instead of discussing this marriage with him? And then being hurt when he's reacting like he's not happy with the decision when it was made completely behind his back. And any escape route he tries now that his dad and his uncle are involved will make him look like the bad guy. Like his aunt flat up tells him, if you try to back out of it now, you're going to make us look like bad people. This is what's suddenly thrown on him. All of this is wrong. All of it is disrespectful. It's all hurtful to herself as much as it is to him. And it's the one only saving grace for her is that she agrees to put the discussion off for later. Though she kind of breaks her word on that front. So, overall, my opinion of her is very complicated, and I don't know if the episode-by-episode walkthrough will make it any less confusing for any of us. Finally, characters 6 and 7. Tan Bodan and that person. Yes, capital, and in quotes. Edited. Originally, I started this by saying that the altar is never named. The characters in this show literally call him that person. But of course I don't want to call him that, partially because in English it sounds really rude, and partially because I think it would be incredibly confusing if I just called him that person. And I'm also clearly not calling him the altar, because in a DID system both of them are altars. But then here I am editing this because, well, that's partly true. I'm rewatching one of the scenes I hate in episode 18, and I'm actually debating this right now. Did this altar pretty much say that his name is also Tan Bodan there in episode 18? Or was he still building up to who he really is? From what I can see in the Hanja, the Chinese text, and from what Google Translate is giving me, he did use the name Tan Bodan. Am I not the Tan Bodan from back then? Look at me, I am the Tan Bodan that you fell in love with. That's what he's actually saying as far as I can tell, which is not what the English translation put there, because the English translation didn't put the name in, and he did use the name. He did say it twice. So is he saying here that his name is also Tan? Or is his point solely that right now and back then, this is the same person, and the name is only being used because it's the name Jajan knows? I don't know. I am not sure. I really can't tell. And I really don't like the idea of calling these two Tan B versus Tan A, as one reviewer comment did, because to me that's amplifying misconceptions about DID. So any way you look at it, even going through and seeing that again in episode 18 and wishing like crazy that I knew more Chinese, I never thought I'd get to the point where I actually wished I knew Chinese, but I'm getting to the point where I wish I knew Chinese. I think I'm going to go ahead and do what I originally did before overthinking to the nth degree, which, if you can't tell yet, you'll see soon enough, is something I excel at to the nearly detrimental level. I'm going to go ahead and continue using the nickname that I gave him. And I do hope that I didn't go ahead and amplify different misconceptions by the one that I chose, but I don't want to give him a full-on name. One, because it's not my character, and two, because he either has one that hasn't been specified, or three, he does claim the same name, Tan Bodan, And I don't want to call these two Tan A and B, and obviously I can't just call them both Tan. So, all that long, confusing explanation later, I am calling him Mirror. So, character 6 and character 7, i.e. the two alters that make up the main character in this show, will henceforth be called Tan and Mirror. Let's start the actual character breakdown. Tan is the main character we see. He is introduced as the first-ranked detective in the city of Tianjin. He's first seen after almost 16 minutes of the first episode have gone by. He's not the first thing you see by far. His attitude includes extreme confidence, detailed knowledge concerning his area of expertise, professional/quick-witted action, words that are partly professional, partly pure arrogance, and a grin that implies a mischievous pride and joy in his job that even a bunch of guns pointed at or near him isn't enough to dispel. What I specifically like about him is that he's super smart, he's super caring, especially about the people he loves, i.e. Jajan and Dapan, and he really does have the best interest at heart, even while conflicted and confused over his own struggles. He usually knows how to admit when he's wrong, well, kind of debatable, and does what he can to correct himself once he finally admits if he's wrong. That's actually one of his amazing character growth things you'll see. Though moving in to the dislikes, he is actually very stubborn. I mean, a lot of it is understandable. And yet, if only he could keep the cautious care but stop the obstinate stubbornness. It causes so much more pain and confusion than is needed, and you'll see it as we continue. Mirror's opinion of Tan seems to be, at the start, that while yes, he's smart, no, he's not doing everything he can with what's available to their brain, and therefore it's a waste for Tan to be the one controlling the body, since Mirror would clearly be a better detective, in his opinion. One more character to go, moving over to Mirror, who isn't introduced until 35 minutes into the first episode. He is quickly described as extremely arrogant, with barely repressed bitterness and frustration, and a smirk that implies retribution for long-standing wrongs is finally on the way, and it will be sweet. He knows exactly what to say to get Tan worked up. His teasing and taunting is direct and personal, and since we're on the negative side already, I'll just say that his consistency is good, but it's also his downfall. He really is so arrogant, he accuses Tan of being unable to see things, and yet he's the same way. If he believes he's right, he will not budge, no matter what anyone says, which means he's pretty stubborn too. What I specifically did like about him is that he's super smart, he's very direct, he's consistent in his handling of things. Actually, he's in a way a lot more impartial than Tan is, which is good and bad, as we'll see. And on top of being mischievous, in a good way, he's also quite cunning and shockingly patient. Yes, patient. I also love the fact there's an underlying depth to him that comes out more throughout the show, where at first it might seem that he's just a jerk. In actuality, he's got motivations based on life experience that has brought him real pain, and he doesn't want it repeated. Am I the one reading too much into this because I, for some reason, and that's in air quotes, like Mirror? So am I justifying things that aren't unjustifiable? Is it the screenwriter's poor writing not portraying correctly what they were trying to portray? Or is it the actor's fault for not being evil enough? Or is it the translator's fault for not translating properly, so it's not my fault I missed it / didn't see it that way? Or am I right? And this isn't a black and white, good and bad, too far-fetched difference between alters, but a much more real and legitimate true difference between either an AMP or an EMP, Tan, and a persecutor, or unless I'm really reaching, a persecutor / protector alter, Mirror. Those are the questions I kept asking myself the whole way through this review, and I don't know if I ended up answering them or not. Whatever your opinion is by the time we're done, I would love to hear it. Especially if you've actually watched the show yourself and not just listened to what I said about it, because there's no way that I'll be able to cover absolutely everything that the show shows, and also because I'm not a DID system, I don't want to say, this here is exactly what it's like, because I have no idea. And every DID system is completely different as well, so one might think this is a really good representation, one might think it's a horrible representation, and I'm not going to say that either one of them is wrong, because I don't know. I don't have the first-hand experience, I can't say. So I think that's all I wanted and needed to say before diving into the actual episode by episode walkthrough, which means I reached the end of this video. And looking at it, it took 25 minutes just to go through the characters, and it was already like 20 minutes just to do the rest of the introduction. So this is already long. Hopefully what I've done is made you highly interested and ready for the next video versus totally annoyed, confused, or absolutely ready to walk away. And maybe you didn't even reach this point. I hope you did. There are, of course, a lot of other characters in this show. Changmin has 2 brothers. I forget their names at the moment. They all start with Chang. One of them is Changsun, but I can't remember the oldest brother's name. Changsun is the second oldest. I forget the oldest brother's name. Anyway, Changmin has 2 brothers, a father, and 2 sister-in-laws. There's a mystery from 20 years ago that has characters surrounding it. There's a mystery from 40 years ago that have characters. There's a whole show. The whole show gets complicated, really complicated. And as a result, both in good ways, I actually love how well everything ties together. This show is one of the only ones I've seen where only one thing, literally only one thing, and it's the one thing that makes me furious, comes out of left field. Everything else is so well tied together that even if you forget, once you're rewatching it, you see everything coming. Nothing is not seen coming in some way. There's hints and blatant hints about pretty much everything. It's also in a bad way. We'll get there. And so while my main focus is the characters and individuality as well as their combinations, i.e. the relationships, and therefore I won't be going too deep into the story itself. I do go there a little bit, and I hope you will enjoy it. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me. It took me forever to go through this, and I feel like there's still more I can say because, yeah, human beings are complicated and stories are complicated, and representing it all when it's complicated is complicated. So, there you go. I'll see you in episode 1. Thank you for watching, and I hope you continue to follow this and give your opinions. Bye!